Hurricane Nicholas made its way across the Texas Gulf tonight. How organizations in the Brazos Valley are lending a helping hand. Plus, Hispanics are now the country's largest minority, but did the census accurately count every one of them? Some think that answer is no.
And the heaviest rain continues to push away from the Brazos Valley over into Louisiana, but we may keep the clouds around for another day or so. Then it just gets hot again by the weekend. Your 25 News starts right now.
Connecting the Brazos Valley. This is KRHD News.
Good evening and thanks for watching KRHD News at 6. I'm Hallie Jones. Some Brazos Valley volunteers are lending a helping hand over the next few days, serving victims and first responders impacted by Hurricane Nicholas. KRHD reporter Rebecca Fiedler takes us inside the Salvation Army's mobile kitchen.
The Salvation Army of Bryan College Station will be sending this mobile feeding unit down to the coast today to help anyone affected by Tropical Storm Nicholas.
First responders and survivors need coffee and hot chocolate.
Dwayne Walters, a volunteer of many years with the Salvation Army, prepared the food truck for its 132-mile journey to Freeport early this afternoon. Walters and a fellow volunteer coming in from Austin will spend several days in the truck helping out in coastal communities.
We understand that there's some significant flooding. We understand that Tropical Storm Nicholas was Tropical Storm, or actually a Hurricane Nicholas, for a short period of time. So therefore we anticipate some wind damage, some power outages, things like that.
The mission of this canteen is both simple yet multifaceted. Walters and his peers with partnering charity organizations will acquire food supplies locally, which Walters will then cook in the truck and serve to storm victims and first responders. But the Salvation Army's goal in responding to Nicholas goes beyond making food.
They can get a hot meal and keep going with good nutrition, as well as us providing our spiritual and emotional support.
Even the canteen's mascot, a plush armadillo toy and a cowboy hat, who rides along on the dashboard, has a role to play in storm relief.
It's a communication tool that we use with the children to engage them, because they're often frightened and not sure who these strangers are that are showing up to help.
The mobile unit will be able to supply up to 2,000 daily meals to those in need for as many days as they are requested. Here on the home front, Captain Timothy Israel says the Salvation Army will be doing its part in helping victims of Nicholas who are seeking refuge in Aggieland.
We're providing food boxes and hotel vouchers or clothing assistance for evacuees that maybe have evacuated the affected areas. So if someone has evacuated there and has found themselves here locally, they can come by our location at 2506 Cabot Avenue and receive those services.
Reporting in Bryan, Rebecca Fiedler, KRHD News.
And several Texas A&M Task Force 1 units remain deployed along the coast. KRHD News reporter Rachel Espaillat spoke with a member of the team about the status of the storm and the response effort.
The worst of Tropical Storm Nicholas has passed through the Lone Star State. But still, a sleepless night for Texas A&M Task Force boat squads, making rescues and helping local response agencies as areas like Matagorda face the greatest impact. The southern parts of the coast were spared, leading boat squads to reposition themselves to the upper eastern coast and near the Louisiana border. Now, units are assessing the area.
Our crews will be out running around their areas, getting some real-time on-the-ground data to be able to feed back to the state so they can make a determination of how much longer we'll be out.
Texas A&M Task Force 1 boat squads are hoping to go home Tuesday and Wednesday depending on where they are stationed. Rachel Espaillat, KRHD News.
And cleanup in Houston and surrounding areas continues today. Nicholas brought winds up to 95 miles per hour, toppling trees and scattering debris across the coast, even bringing rain up to 18 inches in Galveston overnight. Governor Abbott issuing a disaster declaration for at least 17 counties, with many resources on standby. In Houston alone, nearly 500,000 without power.
The number one priority for people in the city of Houston is to get their power restored.
We're still assessing damages, in particular the extent of debris damage. There is debris out on the roads still.
Nicholas has moved on to Louisiana now. President Biden approving another emergency declaration for that state. Some spots could see 10 to 20 inches of rain over the next few days. Well, Hispanics will soon become the most populous group in Texas, but they're seeing an increase nationwide as well. But in a chaotic year, did every one of the Hispanic heritage get counted? As KRHD News investigator Dennis Turner shows us, many believe America's biggest minority to be even bigger than what's reflected on the census.
As the Census Bureau urged us to stand up and be counted, Dandara Oliveira kept her seat.
No, I didn't do it because I didn't have information about it. I had little time in the U.S., and I also didn't know English yet.
Hispanics made great strides in the 2020 census, growing 23% to 62 million. Or did they?
The one place I'm worried about is with a possible undercount of Hispanics.
Dr. Dudley Poston, a world-renowned sociologist and demographer, says citizenship questions and COVID may be the reason for the possible undercount.
I think COVID and the citizenship question possibility resulted, I think, in an undercount. I think the population of Texas and of the country of Hispanics should be bigger than it came out to be.
Those who work with immigrants say it's true.
They are not really accurate because the community were underreported, especially in the immigrant community.
Even so, many experts call the 2020 headcount the most accurate possible, considering the circumstances.
A third of households had to be counted through other ways. In other words, what are the other ways? Through census enumerators, through door-to-door canvassers. In the middle of a pandemic, that was a hard challenge to meet.
The Census Bureau does caution us to use care in comparing 2020 data, mostly due to changes in coding and more detailed accounting of Hispanics. But the Bureau goes on to say the results line up with other research over the past decade. Nobody calls the count perfect, especially with people like Dania Palma coming forward. She says she was afraid to fill out the forms because she didn't have a green card. Even with stories like that, Hispanics still zoomed to the top of the heap. In Texas, experts said we turned majority Hispanic within 5 years. Well, Dr. Poston has some news for us.
Senator Cruz beat Beto O'Rourke by 200,000 people. We've grown now in our state by 4 million people.
Preparing for change, politically and otherwise, in our next series of reports. Dennis Turner, 25 News.
U.S. Census Bureau reports Texans of color make up 95% of the population changes in the last decade. Texas had a 16% overall population change, with this state total coming in over 29 million. Hispanic Texans increased nearly 2 million people since 2010, with Asian Texans rising over 613,000. Black Texans also saw an increase of almost 558,000 people. And it wasn't just population increases Texas gained in the 2020 census. The state also picked up 2 more electoral college seats. Texas also picked up the same number of U.S. House seats in the last year's census, the only state to increase either in the count. Oregon, Montana, Colorado, North Carolina, and Florida also picking up 1 seat. 7 states lost House seats, including California, now down to 52. Critics say the pandemic, hurricanes, wildfires, and political unrest may have contributed to an inaccurate census count, but the American Statistical Association says the numbers are good. A new 59-page report released this morning says experts found nothing out of the ordinary. The Census Bureau says it had to rely more on actual counting this year compared to some guesswork of previous years, as COVID-19 forced populations to change permanent residences amid mandates and closures. The new census data shows that the pandemic caused poverty to go up in 2020. Last year, about 11.4% of Americans were living in poverty. In 2019, that number was 10.5%, the lowest level since record keeping began in 1959. 3.3 million additional people fell below the poverty line last year. The data also says median household income fell to $67,500 last year. Meanwhile, Texas A&M ranked as the 17th best public university in the country according to Forbes. The ranking is based off of graduation rates, student debt, return on investment, and other factors. Overall, A&M ranked as the 50th best school in the country. The only schools to rank above A&M in Texas are UT Austin and Rice. A&M also ranked number 10 among schools in the South.
Since schools reopened, we're seeing a drastic rise in COVID cases among kids. The American Academy of Pediatrics reports a 240% increase since July. Kids now account for nearly 30% of all cases in the country. Health experts say school vaccine mandates may be the best way to combat this. They're urging parents with young kids to get vaccinated for their protection. Many parents who have already done that are still eager to get their kids under 12 vaccinated. And one way to do that is by enrolling them in vaccine trials. But you want to make sure you're doing this safely. A doctor we spoke with from Tufts Children's Hospital says be sure you're going directly to the Moderna or Pfizer website. From there, you can type in your zip code to find a COVID vaccine trial near you. Talking with your pediatrician's office can also be a good way to find a trial and get more information. But keep in mind that it's not guaranteed your child will get vaccinated if they're a part of the trial.
Oftentimes they are comparing the vaccine to a placebo. So there is a chance that their child could enroll in the study and not receive vaccine. And these studies are also what's called blinded. So neither the researcher, the nurse administering the vaccine, nor the parents or the child receiving the injection will know if they've gotten the actual vaccine or not.
Now, Dr. Chow says it is important to keep practicing COVID precautions as your child goes through the trial for this reason. And as always, the clinical trials, there could be potential side effects. So be sure to consult with your child's pediatrician first and thoroughly read through the consent form that will detail possible side effects. But as doctors have been saying from the start, the benefits of the vaccine greatly outweigh the risk. And we now have vaccine data from millions of people around the world. Vaccinating your child can also benefit others around them.
They protect those more vulnerable children so they can also attend school. And these are oftentimes their friends and neighbors, and as it's being a good neighbor and being a good friend.
The CDC expects a vaccine to be approved for kids under 12 by the end of the year.
Apple announced their new iPhone 13 today. We'll tell you about it. But first, small businesses in the Brazos Valley struggled during the pandemic, but have remained resilient through it all. That story after the break. The pandemic has been tough on small businesses, and it's still taking a toll with things like supply and staff shortages. So for those that have survived, Small Business Week takes on a whole new meaning this year. KRHD's Hannah King has more on how you can help keep them around.
Chrissy Sayers is the manager of Bird's Nest in downtown Bryan. Like many other small businesses, she says their survival depends on word of mouth.
From you bringing your family in when they come from out of town, from just telling your friends, hey, I saw these cute stores in downtown Bryan, we should make a day of it. That is what really keeps our small businesses thriving.
Sayers says it's easy to support small businesses.
Sharing a post on Facebook, that is, it's free and it takes 2 seconds. Your friends trust your instinct and what you love, and so giving a good word to a small business that you went to, they're going to try it.
Those 2 seconds go a long way, especially when tough times are not too far behind.
There was one scary month, when we couldn't even open our doors. We went online, so we've kind of, pivoted and we made it through. And now, by doing that pivot, back in 2020, it's made our businesses that much stronger.
Another small business who had to adapt, Brazos Glassworks, just down the street.
We went more heavily into the internet on our Etsy shops as well as our website, and that has really kept us afloat during the worst part of the pandemic.
Owner Debbie Jasic says small businesses are the backbone of the U.S. economy.
It's where most people get their first jobs, is in a small business. It's where you learn to do things. You learn to be a business owner yourself, or learn what you like and what you don't like. And when that goes away, there's problems.
And just walking through the doors makes a difference. In downtown Bryan, Hannah King, KRHD News.
Well, get ready for a new iPhone. Apple announced 4 new smartphones at its virtual event today. The phones include the iPhone 13, 13 mini, 13 Pro, and 13 Pro Max. The device will have improved G5 chips along with longer battery life and an updated camera system. The phones will also have a faster refresh rate for improved gaming. And while Apple is celebrating their latest announcement, they're also providing a software update alert. The company is updating its software to fix a vulnerability in the iMessage app. Researchers say the software has been exploited to spy on an activist from Saudi Arabia. The spyware works without the user clicking on any links. Apple says the vulnerability does not affect many users, but has still fixed the issue in its software update. Now let's get a check of the weather with First Alert Chief Meteorologist Matt Hines.
And it has been a dreary day around here in the Brazos Valley thanks to Nicholas pulling off to the east of us, but still wraparound clouds here, and that is allowing for those mostly cloudy conditions to continue. You can see that here all across the Brazos Valley from Cameron to Bryan College Station down into Grimes County as well. But as you head off to the east, that's where the rain is, and it's mainly where it's going to stay as you head east of I-45. Now, we still may see an isolated shower or two, and that will continue through the evening hours tonight. But the bulk of the heavy rain is going to be well to our east. Notice this over into Louisiana and heading over into Mississippi. We do have plenty of heavy rain there. Some folks could see up to 10 inches of rain across parts of Louisiana. It's not going to be here, though, and these clouds will slowly start to slip away as we will see Nicholas continuing to ride off to the east. Again, we're on that western edge where we're not going to be seeing much in the way of significant rain. So again, a shower or two tonight going through about 10 o'clock. That will be about it. And then it looks like it's going to start to dry out. Clouds may stick around as we head into Wednesday, but it looks like that any rain will start to pull well off to the east as Nicholas continues to push eastbound into Louisiana. Then on Thursday, a few clouds around from time to time, and those temperatures will start to climb up as well as we start to lose those clouds. So tonight, not too bad out there. Temperatures will be into the upper 60s and low 70s as we head into the morning. And then tomorrow, highs will be in the mid to upper 80s. That's a little below normal for this time of year. We'll take that. And then as we check out your 10-day forecast, we are going to be seeing those temperatures in the upper 80s on Wednesday go to the low 90s on Thursday, middle 90s Friday on into your weekend. Maybe an isolated storm threat on Sunday into Monday. And then hopefully a front gets closer to us by the middle part of next week. That could bring some scattered shower and storm potential. And the models varying on how cool it may get behind that front. So right now we won't cool it off too much and continue to track it for you.
Topping the news feed, police will reinstall perimeter fencing around the U.S. Capitol ahead of Saturday's far-right rally. Right-wing demonstrators plan to protest ongoing criminal cases charged after the January 6th insurrection. Now, this weekend's rally will be the first large-scale security test to the Capitol since those deadly riots. Some of the $15 million in savings related to officers leaving the Seattle Police Department will now go to the city's community-based programs instead. The city council voted to allow the department to keep $10 million for technology projects and other expenses, while the other $5 million is invested elsewhere. The reality TV series Cops was abruptly canceled by Paramount last year following the murder of George Floyd. Now the show has found a new home. Fox News Media will premiere its 33rd season October 1st on Fox Nation, its streaming service. The effects of climate change go beyond increasingly intense fires and floods. It's having a psychological impact as well. In talking to teenagers and young adults in countries all over the world, scientists found an overwhelming majority are sad, anxious, or frightened by climate change, and they don't believe the government is doing enough to protect them. The findings were published in the Lancet Planetary Health Journal. Young people aren't the only ones worried. A new nonprofit marketing group, the Potential Energy Coalition, found more than 60% of Americans are concerned about climate change and the environment, but only 14% talk about the issue often.
Our window to act on climate change is like watching them grow up. We blink and we miss it.
In my case, my 17-year-old made me do it. He's like, Dad, you've been in communications for 30 years. Why don't you start helping with this issue? Which is, I think, how a lot of change happens, that our younger generation prompts us to do that.
And that's why the Potential Energy Coalition has teamed up with the Ad Council and another group called Science Moms on a new campaign to empower parents to discuss climate change. Now, Science Moms is a group of climate scientists who are also mothers looking to educate, empower, and inspire moms through relatable information.
And so just connecting, I think also, our communication
probably hasn't been the best at times as scientists, right? We're using words that people don't understand. And so they kind of just push this to the side, right? This is not something that matters to me because I have no idea what you're saying, right? And so we can provide them with the information, and we can talk about things like, if you live in Colorado, maybe, when your child is an adult, it's going to be more like what Arizona is like, like making things that are relatable as to what impacts that you can see, your family can see what you'll experience in the future.
Climate research scientist Melissa Bird is one of the founding members of Science Moms. Their website is loaded with resources for families on climate change, like books, videos, and simple tools to take action. While the problem may seem complex, the message is simple.
You always want the next generation to have something better than what you had. And I want all of the moms and the parents to kind of join me on this front row seat to really use their voice and empower them to be a part of that movement for change.
We've all experienced what happened over the last several months with the extreme heat and the drought and the water shortages and the fires and the floods. Climate change is here, and we have kind of a small window of opportunity to act, but it's not too late.
Well, if you haven't received at least one car warranty scam already this year, consider yourself lucky. RoboKiller estimates they'll be the top phone scam of the year, and it's projecting nearly 13 billion of this type of scam call in 2021. RoboKiller estimates car warranty robocalls will be the biggest phone scam since it started monitoring robocall trends in 2017. Now, there are plenty of legitimate extended car warranty plans available, but there are differences between the contracts sold by third parties versus those sold by new car dealerships. The nonprofit Consumer Checkbook found a lot of the third-party ones particularly may not be worth your money.
It was page after page of things the policy excludes, and we really had a hard time understanding what it might even cover.
And those exclusions include not covering braking systems, exhaust systems, or catalytic converter seals.
Even when the policies do cover a repair you might need, we found that a lot of these companies have thousands of complaints lodged against them with the Better Business Bureau and other consumer agencies about denial of claims.
Consumers Checkbook also found third-party companies using deceptive sales practices. Now, these are things like robocalls pretending to be the car manufacturer or sending out mailers that make it seem like it's coming from either the state DMV or the car maker. Consumers Checkbook says at a dealership, the extended warranty they're selling has to be approved by the manufacturer. Now, there are still some exclusions around what they cover, but they don't appear to deny claims nearly as much as third-party companies. Still, consumer experts say you may not need one of those extended warranties.
If you've bought a new car, it's going to come with a 3 to 5 year warranty. And the new car warranties that exist, those that you get from auto manufacturers, are pretty good. If you've bought a car and within the first few years, you notice that there's problems with it and you feel like, well, I probably should get covered for future repairs, or Consumer Reports or some other, reputable authority says, this car has a track record of problems, then I guess consider buying one of these plans.
But he does recommend calling multiple dealers and letting them know you are shopping around. Well, your zip code may be a major factor in how long you live independently. What researchers have found is leading to this, and steps you can take to prevent this no matter where you live.
With flu season right around the corner, Texas A&M medical experts are encouraging the Brazos Valley to get the flu and COVID-19 vaccines. Flu cases across the nation remained low last year because of social distancing and masking. However, with many people becoming more relaxed and returning to pre-COVID behaviors, experts predict a more typical flu season this year. As a result, experts hope people get vaccinated in order to lessen the pressure on hospitals.
We also have long-standing data relating to the flu vaccines that show that they are very safe and they tend to be, pretty effective at keeping people out of the hospital and keeping people well. So, the fact that we have this ongoing pandemic and, lots of visits to the doctor and lots of hospitalized patients, especially in Texas, that's even more reason to take some preventative measures for yourself, to keep yourself and your
Flu season typically begins in the month of October each year and lasts until the springtime of the following year. And Texas A&M AgriLife researchers are collaborating to improve crop defenses against diseases. Through a combination of CRISPR and gene editing technology, researchers are working to develop disease-resistant citrus fruits. Additionally, the research team hopes to make breakthroughs in crop regeneration, which is the process of regrowing genetically edited fruit and vegetable crops.
It takes at least 2 years to get one citrus to grow back into a size that we can put it back in the fields. So with this technology, we are combining two things: using CRISPR to edit our traits, but also enhance the regeneration, to make the plant breed it faster, essentially, to breed faster the improved lines.
Along with the Texas A&M scientists from University of Maryland and the USDA will be taking part in the CRISPR gene editing research. It was an exciting finish last night as the Las Vegas Raiders opened their season with a Monday Night Football win in overtime against the Baltimore Ravens. WTAW's Zach Taylor joins us now with sports.
Here's your 25 sports update with WTAW's Zach Taylor.
Hey KRHD viewers, Texas A&M volleyball is riding high after sweeping the field at the Texas A&M Invitational this past weekend. The Aggies have taken their 5-match win streak on the road tonight to visit Texas State in San Marcos. First serve was at 6 o'clock. Yordan Alvarez and rookie Jose Siri both went yard twice as the Houston Astros steamrolled the Texas Rangers last night 15-1. Siri became the first player in MLB history to hit 2 home runs and drive in 5 runs in his first career start. We'll see if he's back in the lineup tonight when the Stros and Rangers duke it out for Game 2 of their Lone Star Series. By the way, Houston ace Zach Greinke will be back on the mound, making his first start since testing positive for COVID-19 last month. First pitch is at 7:05 at Globe Life Field in Arlington. And ESPN reports the Houston Rockets and John Wall are working on a trade destination for the veteran point guard. After being traded to Houston last year, the 31-year-old Wall averaged 20.6 points and 6.9 assists per game. From the WTAW Sports Studio, I'm Zach Taylor.
Well, you may have seen it in your own family or someone you know. Adults losing their independence as they grow older. Now, it can be heartbreaking, but Vanessa Machanya found new research shows it's not just genetics determining how long you remain independent. It could be connected to your zip code.
Think about your location, your zip code. Maybe you're there because you moved for work, or maybe because your family has never known another one. Maybe you're there because you had nowhere else to go. Of all the things that determine it, your zip code may actually be a major factor in how long you live independently.
One finding leads to another,
Dr. Thomas Gill is a professor at Yale, and for the last 22 years, he and his team of researchers have been following a group of more than 750 senior citizens, interviewing them every month and documenting changes in their functions. More than 100 papers have been published about different findings from this study. The latest one paired their research with what's called the Area Deprivation Index, a tool by the University of Wisconsin which quantifies the level of advantage or disadvantage a neighborhood has, down to the zip code.
And we compared those who were living in neighborhoods that were disadvantaged versus those who were in more advantaged neighborhoods and found fairly striking findings.
What they found is that those in their study living in more advantaged neighborhoods were able to stay independent for more than 2 years than those living in disadvantaged neighborhoods. Dr. Gill foresees these findings having both policy, such as making a case for more available housing in advantaged neighborhoods, and clinical applications.
Just making clinicians aware that it's not necessarily individual decisions that are leading to these poor outcomes, but there's this overlay of disadvantage at a higher level, this neighborhood level, that are posing really immense challenges.
When an older adult loses their independence, it can have severe financial impacts to their family. A 2015 survey by the AARP and the National Association of Caregivers reported that 36% of caregivers have moderate to high levels of financial strain. So how can you prevent losing independence for as long as possible? Dr. Gill recommends 150 minutes of exercise a week, starting as soon as you can. And that exercise can be as simple as walking.
There's more evidence to support that than almost any other type of medical intervention. There's no pill that is effective as physical activity, particularly walking.
Proactive thinking to hopefully stave off letting your zip code determine your future. I'm Vanessa Mashanya reporting.
Thank you for that, Vanessa. As school districts across the U.S. face bus driver shortages, Massachusetts is calling on the National Guard for help. The news feed starts with nearly 100 members of the Massachusetts National Guard beginning training today. They will serve as school bus drivers and give other needed assistance in communities impacted by the shortages. Now, the relief payments from Congress over the pandemic have at least helped ease hardships as the economy has struggled. That's according to the Census Bureau report out today. 11.4% of Americans were living in poverty last year, but the report shows a dip in those numbers when stimulus checks were factored in. There are no major irregularities in the 2020 census results. That's what an independent panel of researchers found, who conducted a review after concerns about interference by former President Trump's administration. Well, getting to the U.S. is just the first hurdle for Afghan refugees. One community is making sure a former Afghan interpreter knows he always has a place with them.
I got it in me. I'm 71. If I guess I'd go to jail if I had to.
The other support they're giving him as he fights to stay in the place he now calls home.
And we're still seeing some wraparound clouds from Nicholas push into the Brazos Valley for tonight, but I think rain potential will be coming down as we make our way through the next 24 hours or so as Nicholas continues to push off toward the east, and we may have some clouds in the morning, breaking up a little bit in the afternoon. Can't rule out an isolated shower, but I think our rain chance is less than 20% on Wednesday. For Thursday, well, probably more of the same, maybe partly cloudy skies around here, and I think temperatures are going to be warming up for us as we head into the end of the week and probably on into your weekend as well. So tonight, temperatures will be dipping down into the upper 60s and lower 70s, so it is going to be a mild morning for you out there. And tomorrow, still a little bit below normal. Hottest temperatures will be across our western areas, where you'll make it up into the upper 80s over here. Same for Bryan College Station, a little cooler off to the east, where the clouds may be a little bit thicker closer to I-45. But other than that, things are going to be heating up and drying out around here, with temperatures around 88 degrees on Wednesday with partly to mostly cloudy skies. Thursday at 91, mid-90s on Friday, going into Saturday and Sunday as well. Could be an isolated storm threat here by the end of the weekend. Then as we head into next week, about a 20 to 30% chance for a few widely scattered thunderstorms here Monday and Tuesday. A front could get closer to the area on Wednesday. That'll bring a chance for some scattered showers and thunderstorms to the area, and temperatures going from the lower 90s down to the 80s. Some models are even cooler than that, so we'll continue to track that closely as we get closer to next week. But it looks like the majority of the heavy rain will be over in Louisiana the next 24 to 48 hours.
Getting into a concert could be as easy as scanning your palm. Starting today, AXS is adding the Amazon One technology at Red Rocks Amphitheater. It's planning to expand to more venues around the country. Now, you sign up to connect your palm to a ticketing account by hovering your hand over the Amazon One device. It's the first time this technology will be used outside Amazon stores. Well, Apple has fixed a major security flaw. Researchers with Citizens Lab discovered hackers could get into iPhones and other Apple devices without the owners doing anything. The issue was exploited to plant spyware on a Saudi activist iPhone. Now, Apple owners should get alerts on their devices prompting them to update iOS software. You can also go to Software Update on your device to trigger the patch now. The push is on at some zoos to vaccinate animals against COVID-19. Tomorrow, the symptoms animals show before some test positive for the virus. But still to come today, the shortage of school nurses is putting a strain on districts amid the pandemic, while hiring agencies that are supposed to be helping are bringing up new problems. Former Presidents Bill Clinton, George W. Bush, and Barack Obama, along with the former First Ladies, are joining an effort to welcome and support Afghan refugees coming to the U.S. The former leaders are honorary co-chairs for the new nonpartisan nonprofit organization called Welcome.us, which launched today. The group's goal is to serve as a central point of contact for public and private efforts to help Afghan refugees. Well, for many, the journey to the United States isn't an easy one. Finding a path to stay here can be just as difficult. A small Midwestern town is finding that out firsthand. Chris Stewart looks at how the community is rallying around a former Afghan interpreter who they say is one of their own.
This is downtown Iowa Falls.
Zalmay Niazi isn't a native Iowan.
I think the community would be lost without him.
But to those in Iowa Falls, where he goes by Z, he's as American as it gets.
You got, to me, a true American hero.
Born and raised in Afghanistan, he worked alongside U.S. forces as an interpreter in the war.
An interpreter always has to have a very good judgment, and because a single mistake can cause a lot of problems.
He was shot and nearly lost his eye in an IED blast.
I don't remember a day that we came back with the full magazine back to our bases. And we have some thread letters that has been stick to our front door overnight or whenever they had chances. These are all there.
These are from the Taliban?
These are the Taliban letters.
The Taliban killed his uncle. They often sent these letters threatening to harm Z's family, many of whom are still overseas today.
And you have to stop, otherwise we will do what we can to take your life or burn your house or do what we did to your uncle.
Z came to the United States in 2014 with a round-trip ticket. But when the Taliban learned he was in Washington, D.C. for a conference, they said if he came back, they'd kill him.
And I said, I have served this country and I have to be protected. That's what I've been told and that's what I did.
He found his way to Iowa Falls through a cousin who settled here.
You can see America in TVs too. It doesn't look like Iowa.
Over the past 6 years, he's built a successful handyman business and he owns a home that he renovated himself.
I have 4 grandchildren and he's the oldest.
He's also made friends that have become family, like Mike Ingebrigtsen.
Long ways from home. He served his country. He served this country. Soldiers came home because of him.
But immigration officials have not been so welcoming.
Taliban is a reality in the country. You can't hide it.
In 2017, Z went through a 7-hour interview as part of his request for asylum to stay.
Some questions were, have I ever seen the Taliban? What was my closest interaction with them?
He told them when he was 9 years old, the Taliban came to his home and demanded he give them food.
They said, we'll burn your house, we'll kill your father, and you can kill your mother. And I had to go home. Mom threw me a piece of bread. It wasn't bigger than my hand, and I just give it to them and they leave.
In May of this year, after 4 years of waiting to hear about his asylum case, Z received this letter from the government.
This was an immigration document.
It said in the eyes of immigration officials, he engaged in terrorist activity and he could be deported.
Unfortunately, the threshold for support for terrorism is tremendously low.
Keith Herding is Z's attorney.
Even if it's just a bag of bread, that could be the sort of thing that would prevent him from being able to enter.
I don't know what else to do when you are under threat, when you are trying to save yourself and your family, and they're clearly telling you what to do.
My legs just turned to rubber and I had to sit down.
When that letter came, this small farming town went to work.
We've had people that have said, you'll take me before you take him.
Community members have raised thousands of dollars to pay legal fees, but the support goes beyond money.
I got it in me. I'm 71. If I guess I'd go to jail if I had to keep him safe.
Last month, a sign of hope. The government said it will review his asylum application and he's no longer on track to be deported.
Until I get my card and look at it and I will say, I earned you, I won't believe it.
For now, Z waits. To those in this town, the belief that he should stay has become as abundant as the acres of cornfields surrounding Iowa Falls.
1/4 of schools nationwide don't have an assigned school nurse. Dan Grossman found some districts are beginning to turn to hiring agencies to help find school nurses amid a shortage.
When talking about triumphs that have come for those tasked with keeping our kids safe from COVID,
I wish I could say there was a lot.
the triumphs have been few and far between.
A lot of it became exhaustion, pure exhaustion of the level of work.
Julie Wilkin works as the Director of Health Services for Jeffco Public Schools in Colorado, a district that has lost more than 30% of its nurse working force in only the last 4 months.
They're not only adding on the work of COVID, but now they're adding on additional schools and additional work on top of it.
The district serves 80,000 kids and 50,000 employees across 143 schools. It has 73 nurses.
My family life took a hit. You know, I wasn't home.
Ones like Monica Wood to handle them all.
We were working late nights, we were working weekends. I mean, some of us were putting in 60, 70 hours plus a week.
The problem is nationwide. The National Association of School Nurses says only 40% of schools in the country have a full-time registered nurse on staff. 35% have a part-time registered nurse, and the remaining 25% don't have one at all.
I was going to be a mentor this year for a new nurse, and I was assigned. We met once, and then she, you know, it wasn't for her, so she moved on to something else. We lose a lot of knowledge in the schools when we have turnover, and that knowledge is it's so important.
To handle the issues, districts have started using hiring agencies to fill the gaps, but those have brought issues of their own. The nurses may not have worked in a school before or are brand new to the profession, and they cost a lot more. The Bureau of Labor Statistics shows school nurses on average make nearly $20,000 less than their counterparts in hospitals each year, but the agencies charge what those in hospitals make. With districts already on tight budgets as they've adjusted to COVID, it can be hard to find the money.
I take that very personally and very professionally, that I want to keep our schools open.
With fewer people applying to become full-time registered nurses in schools, the solution has been hard to grasp in this profession built on compassion and care.
Well, thanks for joining us for KRHD News at 6. Be sure to tune in to our next broadcast at 10.